and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt? Here. Mr. Beistel? Here. Mr. Benz? Mr. Carson?
Here.
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Smith? Here. Mrs. Love? Mrs. Rhodes?
Here. Citizens' comments?
There are none.
Okay. Then we'll move on to approval of minutes.
It is recommended that the board approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2018 discussion meeting and the June 21st, 2018 voting meeting.
Do I have a motion? Discussion? Roll call?
No.
Voice vote, sorry. Voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Fund accounting check summary.
It is recommended that the board approve the June 2018 fund accounting check summary.
Have a motion? Mr. Carson, second? Second, Mr. Fry. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 with 2 absent.
Superintendent information.
The June.
Oh, I'm sorry, June 9, 2018 General Fund Expenditures and Revenues Report.
It is recommended the board approve the June 2018 general fund expenditures and revenue report.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Polakowski, second?
Second.
Mr. Beisel? Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-2.
Now we'll go to superintendent information.
Okay, I want to preface things by saying that I am not trying to be contentious in any manner whatsoever, nor do I want to monopolize time, but I've included 3 documents on the superintendent report, one of which is the proposed administrative realignment. I've met with the administrative team, and we felt that there were some very big holes that we needed to address as far as our administrative team. They have voluntarily agreed to assume multiple positions, in some cases without any additional pay. So I want to commend the team for stepping up to the plate and assuming those additional responsibilities. And I gave you a listing of those, that realignment. Also, I'm going to read a coach case statement. I know that there was last week's or the June 28th budget meeting that coaches, assistant coaches were cut, especially at the middle school, which left many of the sports having only a single coach. And meeting with the administrative staff and with Mr. Swink, we just felt that we needed to go on record making a statement that we really believe that this is not a safe or good situation for our students in the district. And if you please bear with me, I'm going to read what we have written. The safety and welfare of our student athletes should be a primary consideration. Placing students in an active situation where there is only one coach overseeing the program impedes the coach's ability to effectively supervise the student athletes. If a student were injured during the course of a practice or in a game, How would the coach provide the needed medical attention to the student and possibly accompany the student to the hospital if they are the only adult in charge of the program? Number two, in today's litigious climate, having a single coach overseeing the programs places students and coaches in situations that allow for opportunities for accusations to be made either against the students or the coaches. Number three, coaches are charged with teaching student athletes the skills necessary to successfully compete in their chosen sports. Large numbers of student athletes limits the coach's ability to teach students those needed skills. The lack of skills will impact the overall success of athletic programs. I have listed all the coaches that were cut in their salaries for the upcoming year, and I am going to ask if you would consider per school code 687D and 609, there's unencumbered funds can be transferred by 2/3 majority vote of the board to cover these salaries. And I would ask that we transfer from the budgetary reserve account 5,900 into account 10-3250-131, the funds necessary to reinstate those coaches.
State the amount.
I'm sorry, the total amount is $25,924.
Vince, what brought this up? Like, why are we discussing this?
Well, we believe that with the seasons coming on, we're going to have coaches that are going to be overseeing programs in which they are the only adult in charge of that program. And we felt as an administrative team, and I'm speaking for Mr. Swink, we just felt that we were placing everyone in a compromising position. And, you know, I felt that I need to address it just to go on record that I don't believe that it's a situation that's to our advantage for the district, our teachers, our coaches, or our students.
Yeah. I thought we discussed, my opinion, I think parents. I thought we discussed parents and volunteers. Yeah, I mean, I think we can do without all this extra labor. I don't think it's even a conversation to have at this point. I mean, if you figure it out whenever someone's choking on a Jolly Rancher, as one of the teachers has said or coaches has said, you figure out how to get the Jolly Rancher out of his mouth, and I don't think we could justify $25,000. I say absolutely not.
That they shouldn't be alone, and I think that shouldn't happen. I mean, if there is no volunteer, then there is no game. But I don't think we'll ever encounter that problem, because I find this community is very volunteering, and you have all these different parent groups that have sat out here and said what they're going to do for us. Well, it's time for everybody to step up to the plate now and volunteer.
Exactly. I mean, we can't justify spending $25,000 in coaching salaries now. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all.
We take one step forward money-wise, and then we take 2 steps back after we've made the hard decisions.
I'm not worried to spend money.
How many years ago did the middle coaches get paid? It was all volunteer up until a few years ago, when somebody said to them, you should get paid. And then they jumped on the bandwagon and they got paid. Am I right, Charlie? It hasn't been that long.
Well, the only ones that we're at is since I was here, was still some softball, baseball. The other ones are always since I was here.
The way I look at it, you have a head coach. We're not cutting the coaching positions. You're only cutting the salary. And here we sit, 2 custodians lost their job. You got rid of a teacher. We're not in a sports program. We're in academics. And I can't see it. And another thing too is these people that are coaching getting paid now, and we didn't cut, like I said before, we didn't cut your position. We cut the salary. Now it's time for them to step up and see what kind of school people they are to help our programs. Instead of, oh, I ain't getting paid, I'm leaving. Bye. That's my opinion.
I agree.
I think the softball program went volunteers, the head coach and assistant coach for 6 or 7 years. They were both volunteers. And I think the baseball middle school program went 2 or 3 with volunteers. And we just voted to pay their salary a year ago, or 6 months ago, was it? So, I mean, yeah.
We were concerned that if volunteers did step up, that we would be placing those programs in compromising positions. What are we going to do if there are no volunteers? We just felt, I know, we just felt that we wanted to bring it to attention so that it was recognized.
I mean, it's a shame to say, but, and again, I don't see a problem, but I mean, if that situation arises of the oddity, then that game will just have to be canceled. I mean, that's a sad thing to say, but again, I emphasize, I don't think that'll happen because these parents are very involved with their kids, and there's no reason why we can't expect them to step up to the plate.
Another thing, as long as they can pass the security thing or
Right.
whatever for that, you've got to make sure that just don't let anybody get on the field with anybody that doesn't know whether he's capable, able, or what.
You may need a motion at some point if the motion fails, to have a motion to advertise to seek volunteers.
Well, I would think that the head coaches for these sports, surely they know their players and they know the parents. Surely they could come up with somebody that they could approach and say, you know, hey, we need an assistant volunteer coach. Would you be interested? And I think that there's plenty of time that they could maybe start doing that. And I have to agree, I don't think we should be taking a step backwards. We, like Mr. Ault said, we have made the hard decisions, and you know, I don't think that we should be adding to the expenses of the district. So I think that we should have the head coaches seek out some volunteers and see how that goes.
Well, another thing too, maybe they can work it out. The head coach might split his wages with the volunteer coach or whatever to have this thing work till we get over our dilemma of what we need to do here.
I've already suggested that, but they don't want to do it.
No, as long as they get paid, they'll be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I look at it this way: the midget program, that's all volunteer. So if parents want, you know, this to happen, they're going to have to step up. Or they were I heard some people saying about some of these parents associations helping a little bit if they have to. I think maybe we should try to see what everyone's willing to do.
Good idea.
Well, we're willing to, you know, pursue all avenues. I just felt that it was important for us to at least make a statement. Probably the next one's not going to go over real well either, then, to be totally honest.
Let's get her out there.
Team leader proposal for reinstatement of the team leaders. Once again, I have 3 points, and I beg you to bear with me. Team leaders are the link between the students and the learning. They ensure that the teams are focused on students and student success. They develop norms and direct meetings to provide a culture of care and commitment to students and to promote a positive school climate for the school community. The team leader is the liaison between the students, the parents, the counselor, and the principal in matters of student learning, engagement, and support. Simply stated, team leaders oversee our teachers working together to provide supports to our struggling students. In light of after-school tutoring programs being eliminated, this is even more important. Number 2, team leaders set the agenda for curriculum meetings in consultation with building principals. These meetings are designed to allow for teachers to work together collaboratively to develop curriculum maps, assessments, and other work products that assist in the evaluation of our team's goals and students' learning objectives. Changes to maps, assessments, and lessons occur under the direct supervision of the team leaders in those meetings. Team leaders are an important part of the reason why we've gained all the accolades and success following our PLC. I don't think they're all, I do believe I attribute a lot to our teachers. We have a great teaching staff. The team leaders assist in that, and I do believe the administrators oversee that process also. Number 3, team leaders are the counsel for principals regarding key decisions about curriculum, programming, and scheduling. Because team leaders work directly with those areas, they provide the principal with valuable information prior to rendering a decision. For example, the change from school performance profile to future readiness index will affect the way the school is evaluated and ranked. Team leaders would share possible ways that the schools can meet these changes and how those changes might impact curriculum and programming. With the recent administrative alignment, team leaders will be needed to support principals as they begin their work in the new school environments. And I know this is not going to go over well, but once again, I would propose that there was $40,000 that was budgeted in the account for team leaders. It was reduced by $35,000, which left $5,000 in the account, which really did not close that account out. And I would propose that $35,000 be reinstated into the program per the transfer from the budgetary 5,900 reserve account into the account specified below.
Since I saw this on the agenda, I made contact with about a half dozen teachers, and all of them shared the same belief that we really can't get along without the team leaders, that we will function just fine.
We can get along without them.
Without them, yes.
It's going to be a tough year. You know, we know what that budget is. You know, and next year it's going to be. We just can't increase it anywhere. If we do, you know, it's going to be that much more that we're going to have to find or do away with somebody's position.
I think that we should go ahead and proceed this year without the team leaders. At least start out and see how maybe the first part of the year is, and then go from there. Just like we did when we had Mr. Masha and Mr. Clara cover the spot that Mr. Lee left. I mean, you know, they did it for a year, and then we would come back and reevaluate it. So, I mean, I think that maybe that's what we should do with this. Again, going back to what Mr. Alt said, you know, you make these hard decisions, you go through everything, and you start cutting. You have to make the cut somewhere, and it's no good if you take 2 steps forward and you keep taking 1 step backwards. Because every year, unfortunately, every year, this budget is going to be more and more of a monster. And we just have to start somewhere, and we have to move forward. So that's what I think.
And once again, I presented this because as
Right.
an administrative team, we just felt that this was
Right.
an important
Sure.
conversation that we needed to have.
So, any other comments?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I worked with the representative of the Southmoreland Educational Association and administrative team concerning the realignment of our teaching staff. I called and spoke to teachers that would be impacted by any involuntary transfers. I believe I had a responsibility to talk to them in person. The administrative team and I met with Mr. Swink, who drafted a potential extracurricular pay-to-pay fee structure, which is attached, and that will be addressed later on. Met with Mr. Swink and several principals to develop and present the case cards, which we just discussed. Met with Mr. Pushkar about the installation of security cameras in the elementary school. Mr. Pushkar stated that Mr. Smithula has been working to install new cameras in SES, and there are being cameras installed in SES. For informational purposes, on Monday, July 9th, 2018, a district van transporting students from summer school broke down in Youngwood. Mr. Swink arranged for the students to be transported home via another district van with minimal interruptions and problems. And if there are any further questions, Mr. Swink can, answer those questions. On Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, Mr. Miswell and Mr. Krofchek and I met with Mr. Michael Feld, field representative for SEIU 32BJ, which is the Custodial Association, and several members of the local association concerning the reduction of custodial working hours and the impact on the staffing. I worked with Mr. Patonic on the lease arrangements from Westmoreland County Action, Head Start, and WIU 7 for the leasing of the Ruffsdale Elementary School. And I worked with Mr. Patonic on the resolution to give notice of furlough to the teacher affected by the curtailment of the middle school foreign language program. I met with Mr. Marnell and Mr. Haichu about access billing and the steps necessary to initiate the process. A meeting will be arranged with Westmoreland Intermediate Unit to discuss the services they currently provide districts in the billing process. And if there are any questions, Mr. Haichu would be available to ask anyone have any questions concerning access billing. Okay, I also met with Mr. Swink to discuss the conversation he had with Mr. Showman, owner of Quest Transit, concerning the possibility of the district following a two-tiered busing schedule. Mr. Swink will speak to the board to further inform you about the conversation he had with Mr. Showman. And Mr. Swink, can you provide some insight here?
Yeah, I called Art, and I knew the interest of changing the system to a two-tier system, and I was wondering one of the reasons why back in the day that they had done that, when originally it had been a two-tier system at Southmoreland. If you understand the reimbursement for the way we get reimbursed by bus runs, if you look at it, each bus, it takes the total amount of kids, which number one, you want to have as many kids on the run you can, and you also want to get as many miles on that bus as you are able to. With the two-tier system back in the day, we had more full-size buses, but we were getting less miles. We can't make the district any bigger, and in order to get a more reimbursement, Bill Porter at the time, I think they went out and looked at the fact that now if you make that third run, you're pretty much putting another sometimes up to 30, 35 more miles a day on a bus, where you're getting reimbursement for those extra miles instead of the two-tier buses. So we probably are going to reduce our buses that we need with the three-tier. We're going to need more buses for the two-tier. And when they told me when they looked at the reimbursement percentage of what you got overall, it went from somewhere from a 60% reimbursement from your total costs of transportation up close to 75 to 80%. Now that was I think back in late 90s, early 2000, and that's where I said, if we want to meet, we can take a look and see if something has changed. The district's gotten a little bit less students right now. Maybe we can shrink it even more with the two-tier and add a couple buses and save that way. But, he's willing to take a look. And I said, we can sit down after school gets started, see if it's cost analysis on it, and see if it's worth looking into or doing. It may be that it is more efficient now and more profitable to run the two-tier. But at the time, that's why we went to the three-tier. And it probably makes sense looking at when we fill out every year, we do the reimbursement. You look at your bus, and it doesn't matter, so I hear the middle school people say there's only 15, 20 kids on that bus. Well, a lot of times that's because we have to run that short turnaround between high school and elementary to get the kids back. But you also take the high school, middle school, and elementary run, all three of those runs. If you have elementary, or usually it is the elementary, if you got 75 kids on that bus to a max, that's the reimbursement. You take the 75 kids with all the miles that bus ran. So that's where you get the formula, and that's why they went to the three-tier. But we can meet with Art and check it out for you guys and see if it's worth changing.
We're going to try to present additional information to you in August.
Question about that bus. I noticed in the past, I don't know, so much for you, Charlie, but I noticed the past couple of days when I'm walking in the morning, these buses are picking kids up. Are we paying to pick up kids for summer school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because some of them have extended school year that we're required by their
Are they
IEP.
failing? Is that what they're...
No, some of them have, according to their IEPs, Mr. Haichu, you might be able to speak more to this, but there are some students that it is written in their IEPs that they are to extend an extended school year. So we have...
Why do we have to provide transportation? I know whenever 35 years ago, when I was at summer school, I paid Wendover Middle School to go to school there, and I had to have my own transportation. Why are we paying for these kids to have summer school and these bus runs? Like, I don't get that.
Is it a law?
Like, is
If-
there,
if-
Yeah, I don't think, we're not paying for a summer school kid. These are kids that are required by the state, if I'm not mistaken, to go to on through the summer. So it's not like they just didn't pass and they had to go to
I have a
summer
bus
school.
coming into my neighborhood that is a smaller bus that picks up one child. And
There's-
we're talking the district's on the hook for paying for that kid to get to Southmoreland.
Yeah, we got
Get to school and get back.
several. There's a lot of kids that do go. We try to handle as many as we can with our own vans, but there's a couple that we have actual buses at Grooms that we just don't have can't make the time that you have to drop off and get the kids to different schools.
We can't send them children out of the district. Like I went to Wendover. Like there's no way of offsetting that cost anywhere else. Huh?
No.
What does the law say?
It's for students with disabilities. So it's part of FAPE and IDEA, which requires public school districts to provide transportation for students to receive their free appropriate public education program.
Even though they may have parents that could drive them?
That's absolutely correct.
I'm talking about summer school, Mr. Achu.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't
Yes.
matter.
So if their parents are available to drive them, what if the parent decided to drive them? Is that permissible?
The parents are not required to transport their children. If the parents volunteer to transport their children, they can do that. The school district cannot ask them to do that or to volunteer. The other thing to keep in mind is it's not a summer school program for these students. It's extended school year. It does occur during the summer months, but it's not considered summer school. It's a continuation of their instructional programming because of these students that have the disabilities and the natures of the disabilities that they have. They've experienced progression in content and skills that they've learned during the school year, so that when they come back at the beginning of the subsequent school year, they're not starting back at point B when they would have been at point X in the curriculum and their academic growth. It is absolutely the law, and it's not something I can tell you from past experiences that you want to be involved in a due process hearing as a result of requiring parents to provide transportation for their disabled students to an ESY program. It's the federal law as well as the state law for us to provide not only the academic instruction, but the transportation to that academic instruction. It's part of the IEP. It's written in the IEP, and we have to honor it.
And that's all part of our $1.6 million budget with the Quest, right? I mean, transportation is definitely an entitlement, right? We don't have to provide transportation.
It's built into the budget into like non-public school type things. It's built into it, yes.
Well, it's built into it, but it's like the charter bus to the.
But all that still goes into the reimbursement factor running those kids.
You know, when I learned a couple months ago, our budget was $1.6 million for transportation. Then I found out there's $45,000 for charter buses and this, that, and the other thing. Like the busing is definitely an issue. Like if my kid needs a ride to school, like I should have to kick in for that. Like I don't see how that has to be on the taxpayer. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought busing and student transportation was an entitlement. Like it's something we can do without. In other words, like we could completely get rid of transportation altogether and save $1.6 million. Maybe I'm wrong. And Charlie, I'm not pointing you out on this. I'm just saying, like, we can get rid of this $1.6 million. We have, get your own way to school. You know, everyone has grandparents that walk to school up and down hills, all there, and through the snow. We can get rid of transportation altogether, right?
There is a limitation on how far a student, isn't it 2 miles?
10 miles from the district border.
Perfect. I mean,
we're not even that big.
Oh, you mean
they're not walking 10 miles to school.
Do we transport or walking?
Yeah, walking.
Yeah, it's like a mile or so.
Yeah, I mean, perfect. You know, so I don't see all these extra school activities.
You look now, most of the kids around this school do walk.
Oh, this is definitely going to be a conversation we're going to have in the budget next year, because this is an entitlement, and I don't think it's something that is needed.
We're already looking into the busing.
Oh yeah, we're into it deep. We're going to get busing contracts from out of state coming in. Look at this. You know, the good old days of one bid's about done now. I don't know. I can't see how. Every morning I walk and I see one kid getting picked up on a bus and taken to school.
What size bus is that?
Huh?
What size bus is that?
It's a small bus.
How many seats?
Maybe 7, 8, 10.
I mean, we don't. Is that a van or a bus?
It's something we're paying for. We're paying for.
I think it's a small bus, right?
Small mini bus, yeah.
It's a mini bus.
Is it more cost efficient to do A minivan? Is that the only person they pick up?
Whenever in 30 years ago, when I went to summer school for 8th grade, I paid Wendover Middle School for a class. And I had to get myself there by myself. My brother took me to school every day, took me to summer school. Wasn't even a conversation. Now we pay to transport the kids to the school. We pay the teacher. We do all this. Well, if we're going to do that, let's invite all these districts around and let's start charging people to come to our school to have summer school. You know, if they need extra help, well, let's charge them. You know, how is it we're just like, you know,
I agree.
A free-for-all.
Well, the only trouble is, that was a long time ago. Laws has been changed a long time since you went to summer school. Let's
no one's
face
as old as you
reality.
here, Butch. No one's as old as
The
you are.
biggest thing right now is too many parents bring their kids to school, and we still have to have transportation for the ones that Doc brought to school.
I totally agree with you. You know?
Well, then what's the argument? I mean, let's face reality. You have to give these kids...
I'll give you the reality. Get rid of transportation.
Well, you can't for them kids that can't... Jim, that's stupid.
You know.
Get rid of transportation.
You want to save money? I got $1.6 million. You was looking for money a couple months ago. I just found it.
Well, why didn't you find it sooner?
Well, I just found it.
Okay.
We will be looking into the busing issue.
You look at that, 1.6 million, last year you pulled back out of reimbursement over $1 million back. So what we paid, we got $1 million back from the state with reimbursement.
If they're going to run around, with one kid on a bus, and, you know, let's start picking up senior citizens.
You don't really have any choice. That's the whole point. Right now with the state, I got to take them to the school. Believe me, when I came here, I felt the same way. I told every day, I'm like, why do I got to take this kid to this school? Why do I got to take that kid to that school? It's out of our district. It's not ours. It's the law.
It's the law.
When you say it's the law, and this may be a dumb question, is it the law or is it a mandate? And if it's a mandate, what happens when we don't do it? You know, like I asked the kitchenette. She said it's a mandate that we put green beans on the menu. And I said, what happens if you don't put green beans on the menu? Well, we don't get reimbursed for the green beans or something stupid like that. But I mean, okay, so we don't get reimbursed for the green beans. So is it a law or is it a mandate? And if it's a mandate, what is the penalty for not following the mandate?
Are you asking for the summer transportation or transportation in general?
Yeah.
And once again, Mr. Haitu, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is a law that we have to provide transportation for those students that is written in their IEP.
You believe it is, or do you know it is?
No, it is.
Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's federal law.
We will go to arbitration and we will probably lose.
If you do not provide it, the family will take the school district due process. You will incur attorney's fees.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And you will lose.
It's a continuation. It's not summer
We
school.
also need to make sure that it's understood. This is not the traditional summer school that we might be talking about and making up classes and everything.
It's a continuation of their school year, and I do understand that.
Yes.
One quick, does it have to be handicapped?
Yeah,
To
the
pick these kids
acronym
up?
FA.
Handicapped school bus, so they can get in and out.
If they require, we have a handicap.
The acronym FAPE stands for Free and Appropriate Education. So I'm sort of repeating or summarizing what's been said. If the child has a disability and as a result of that process has in their individualized education program, the IEP, a requirement for an extended school year because of that disability so that they can maintain progress, then unlike a regular ed student who has, not done okay during the year, and if they want to progress, wants to go to summer school, unfortunately, most school districts don't provide that. Some do, but most don't. But for the child with a disability, once it becomes part of their IEP, then they're entitled to the same services as the regular ed kids. And since the regular ed kids during their school year get transportation, they also are entitled to transportation. You can't single them out for the summer and say, oh, because this is in the summer, we're not going to provide the transportation.
Very good, very good, very well said.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is, how much is too much? Like, when do we say, or do we ever have a threshold that we can't take any more? Like, is there any barrier? Or we just keep taking them and the state keeps giving us less? Like, what can we do to protect ourselves from, we had a couple of parents that heard, a month ago said, we only moved into the district because of just the great programs you have. That's obvious right there. They're here for one reason, for the great programs we have. But yet it's costing us thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars to keep the program in place. And then everyone gets bent out of shape and we cut something. We trim some fat. We, steal some erasers off somebody else, or we steal a highlighter off the next door neighbor. Like, how do you justify just keep taking more people on, and the state's not giving us more money? How do you? When do we say enough's enough? Like, is there a cap?
I mean, that's a good point, because when they move into this community, and it's nice if we had the money and we could be proud to say we have this, but they obviously came from somewhere that said we can't afford this, and they come here.
How about moving over to Mount Pleasant, come to school here, and Mount Pleasant has to pay for you to be here? I don't understand how all these people can just keep funneling in here. And when do we say is enough? Like, does the state have some kind of a threshold, or what one district can handle?
No.
No, we just keep taking them on. You run out of money, you run out of money.
And that is a product, I would like to say that is a product of our success educationally. We are getting more people coming into our schools because we are becoming noted as, or we are noted as one of the better schools in the area.
Hey, we're running out of money. We can't do it. Now we got to start cutting, we got to start photoing, and you have to cut, we have to cut out the refreshments for the school board, everything. Just got to get cut.
Didn't they cut your paycheck this week?
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
but I'm very proud to say that the reason why we are all here is because of our educational programs and the students, and I believe we are providing a quality program to our students.
We are. We can't afford it. That was evident 2 months ago. We can't afford what we're doing. We're spending more money than we got coming in. So,
Go ahead.
there has to be an end. It's like there has to be some kind of a...
Charlie, on a regular school busing, if we had more children on the bus, would we get reimbursed more money?
No.
Yeah, the idea is you want to get as many on a bus as you can.
So here we are saying our parents ought to find their way for their children to school, and really in all actuality we should be saying we should be picking that child up rather than having them taken to school every day.
Yeah, ideally, but I mean, even so, if you look a kid, if his parent picks him up, takes him to school, still assigned a bus. That's one thing, because if there was an emergency evacuation, if something happened, we have to know where that child is, what bus to get on, where, so the bus driver knows how to get them home. So they're still assigned. So that's one thing when you look at it too, you might see in high school, kid may drive to school, but he's still assigned the bus if there's an issue. So we try to get as many assigned to a bus as possible.
Well, that's good.
So there was a young man stood up here last month, a student, and said that he had an idea. It was a great idea, consolidate down to middle school and then the elementary school to start at the same time, eliminate some bus routes. I think it's a great idea. No one's ever brought that up. I think it's a great idea because I do parent drop off every day, and I think it's a good idea. But also, and going on record for this, I really think that I don't know what York is going on, what they have going on, or Fraser, but I foresee the end game result here is us merging with them, and maybe somebody, Vince, maybe talking to them, or we're in bad shape at Southmoreland School District, and there's no way of sugarcoating it. But I think that us merging together is just an awesome idea. I think it can happen because we're like stepchildren to each other. We have the 31 corridor, the 51 corridor. Everything just fits together so nicely. I think it's a conversation we need to have, whether it's whenever, but we're in trouble. And I think that's a decent idea, something propose to them. But, you know, I don't know, you know, we'll talk to Mr. Marnell, and we're going to keep hammering out this budget, but nothing good's going to come from this next year. Nothing good at all, guys. Nothing good's coming from it. You know, it's going to be more furloughs, more cuts, deeper cuts. It's just going to be a big, big, big problem. You know, it's a big problem. So we need to figure it out. And I think that there's solutions, but we all have to man up and you know, figure them out together. You know?
I don't think we want to look into that, but I know it's inevitable. That's what's going to happen. The school districts are going to have to merge. There's just no way out. It's just too much money going out, not enough money coming in.
We're not the only ones facing it. They're all over. It's all over the state. It's happening.
Yeah, it's just not our district here.
Any more comments on this issue? All right.
Okay, I only have two more
Okay,
quick.
go ahead.
I also met with Mr. Kiefer about the installation of the Raptor visitor system, and he is going to come up and give you some information concerning that.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Mr. Swink. Thank you, Mr. Hachu.
Now, this is some good news. This is going to be paid for with the for protection money. We talked to Mr. Carson, talked to the PTA. We got the okay to go. When I first came here, I identified one of our weaknesses is visitor management. So what the Raptor system does is, if you look at the sheet I passed out, it gives us instant sex offender screening throughout the 50 states. It also can provide us with custom custody databases. For example, if one of our parents get a PFA against the other, we can put that in our database, and if that parent shows up, we know automatically there's a PFA involved, and we can't release that child to that parent. Also, it keeps accurate visitor records, and at any time, anybody on the admin team can check their district-wide reporting. I already spoke to Mount Pleasant, who's running with the system. They've had the program in place now for 4 years. Ringgold has the program in place. It's an excellent system, and what I'm going to do is buy 4 systems. One will go at the high school desk, one will go at the middle school desk, the elementary desk, and the primary desk. So how it works is, when anybody comes in, any visitor, including contractors, parents, like I said, anybody comes in, Charlie, if somebody comes in to visit you, you have a lot of coaches coming in, you know, people selling Gatorade guys. We run their ID card through the system. It scans and makes sure he's okay to enter the building, him or her to enter the building. And then it prints out an ID pass with their picture from their driver's license. It's like a sticky ID. It's an adhesive, and it's a day pass, and they wear that as long as they're in the building. They're identifiable, or anywhere on district grounds. So the bottom line is, POSTA for Protection has agreed to pay for this, and the startup cost for the program is $6,900. Then there's a user fee of approximately $2,000 a year following the first year. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kiefer.
Thank you.
And last, I'd just like to introduce our new assistant principal, high school assistant principal, Raquel Sutton. Raquel, I don't know if you'd like to Say hello to the board.
Good evening. I'm Raquel Sutton. I am coming from Greensburg, Salem, so I'm real excited to start the year. I'll be working with Mr. Krofchek, and we've met a couple times throughout the summer, just getting acclimated to the district, and I look forward to serving Southmoreland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is all for my report.
Solicitor information?
I have a number of items. I had received from the administration a notice in June for a appeal that was filed by the owner of what was the Timber Ridge Golf Course, and it is a corporation which I believe is family owned. The hearing was scheduled for this past week, and I, pursuant to the size of the assessment involved, I did attend it. The current assessment is $268,700, and the implied fair market value, based upon the current common level ratio factor, would make that a $1,657,000 fair market value property. We had the hearing, and I would suggest that if we discuss that further, that it be an executive session, because I would anticipate that either side, which would be unhappy with the result, would be likely to file an appeal. The owner was represented by a law firm from Pittsburgh, and the board listened to the testimony and some objections that I made, and the decision hasn't come out yet. They don't typically make a decision that day. They usually meet with their solicitor and then generate a decision. I would expect that by the August meeting that we would know the result. If the result would come out negatively between now and the August meeting, I would anticipate preparing an appeal, but not filing the appeal until you would approve it, because it can't be filed without your approval. I think because we're already getting to the point where it will be less than 30 days if you approve a August 9th voting meeting, because you already have that as a planning session, that could cover that possibility, rather than just having a special meeting just to cover whether or not to file an appeal. So I've been thinking about that, like, how to handle that, and that's my initial plan. Some other items of import are that I have been in receipt of a communication from a prospect for the Rustell Elementary School, which appears to be negative. However, it was phrased rather oddly, and you'll see a copy of it with board docs. I did try to contact them by telephone. I'm not sure if the key individual is still on vacation, so I sent off an email trying to clarify the situation with some questions. I'm not going to be Pollyannish about that, though. I do think that since things haven't progressed with that the board would be considering moving to a new phase. And in that regard, I took my memorandum concerning the ways that school districts can handle the sale of school properties. And so you'll have that to look at. And in August, I think decisions should be made as to whether to proceed with a public auction or sealed bids or engaging the services of a realtor to do a private sale. And there are advantages and disadvantages to each of those approaches. I tried to point out some of those in the memo. I don't think I'd ever discussed every one of those with you before, so I decided that it would be a good idea to include them in the memo. I would think that if you would think it would be helpful to keep moving along, that the administration could solicit proposals from realtors to find out who might be interested and what commission that they would charge, to have that available for your August meeting so that you can have information to keep progressing with that rather than just waiting till August to make a complete decision, have some more information available and keep that moving. The other items on my...
Hold up there for a second. I'll interrupt you, but I read the thing, the proposals for the elementary school and that, and I read your remedy for that, you know, how we're going to do that, but it sounds to me like they have us in control. Like, we couldn't raise the rent because...
Not this year, but we could next year, yeah.
Yeah, next year, 2019.
Yeah.
So we couldn't raise the rent because we drug our feet. But yet it was actually them dragging their feet because they wouldn't let us know. They had us on the fence, like, hey, we want to buy it, we don't want to buy it, we want to buy it, we don't want to buy it. Then once the lease renews, we don't want to buy it. So now we're sort of at their mercy to keep the lease the same as it was.
I don't think it's really...
So do we have anything to...
Well, first of all, I can't say that they, quote, drug their feet, because part of the problem was trying to figure out whether or not the situation could be easily managed to maintain the baseball program there and allow a subdivision or a separation of ownership such that the school district could keep a majority of the land and the building and just the necessary ground.
Yeah, whoever wrote that letter said, you know, this will be a deal breaker if we try to raise the rent. You know, I don't know where that came from.
That was part of the ambiguity, which I did not understand. I didn't take it that way.
Oh,
I took it to mean that
it sounds to me like they're out. Like, we can't raise the rent.
Their financial analysis was that if they acquired ownership, that they would not be able to justify it because of the number of tenants that are there and the ability to raise the rent to cover whatever increased costs they would have. So that's one way of reading that.
So if someone comes along and says, I'll give you whatever you need for the building, these people are out. We can throw
you can give them a notice to vacate, but it won't be until next year.
It seems weird they have complete control over us.
I don't think so, because I don't think you want an empty building between now and the time you sell it, because then...
Well, if we're not making no money off of it, we're just breaking even, what are we doing?
Well, if you have an empty building, then you start to have deterioration. But the original concept of this, which I'm neither criticizing nor defending, was that there were advantages to the community to have the building rented out and used by local people. The Head Start program there is utilized by local people. The IU program there can also be of benefit to the school district. Now, I recognize, and you've already made the decision, that the benefits that you are getting from that do not justify continuing to own the building forever. So I agree it's time to keep moving on, because that's not working out, and trying to figure out how to save it for the baseball folks and get it sold in an expeditious manner.
Now I got a question. I know you're not going to like this, but this has been going on how long? And another thing too, you wasn't dealing with the right people. These people you were talking to or whatever, they couldn't vote on it. They had to go to somebody else. But we didn't foresee this. And I can't see what the big problem is subdividing that property, put Porter Johns back there, whatever it takes for those kids to play baseball. This has been going on too long, David, as far as I'm concerned.
I was not the person to initiate contact or to be knowledgeable of the prospect. That was initially handled by someone else. We tried to handle it logically. We tried to find out what were the needs of the baseball folks. We set up two meetings with the prospect. The first one was very tentative. The second one, we had met with the baseball people. I gave them a detailed fact sheet concerning the property. They would take that to their board, and the meeting with them on that issue was at the beginning of June. So, as the individual indicated, at the end of June, beginning of July, we're getting information back from them that they can't handle it. So it's time to move on to the next
Yeah,
break.
but the only trouble is, when did we vote on this to sell it?
Well,
How many months ago?
You haven't voted to sell it.
Oh, yes, we did.
You've
Am I
voted,
right or wrong?
You've looked into, you haven't adopted a specific method of selling it, but rather to look into selling it. So that's what's been done.
Okay, now, another question. You got the value you want for it.
Do I have the value?
Well, you and Dr. Molnar were supposed to come up with a price. You had it appraised.
Yes, we have it appraised, and
Well,
you know that. You know
we
that.
don't even know what we want for it. How can we get rid of it?
Well, you're going to make that decision.
Yeah, but it has to be brought from you, Doug. You and Dr. Molnar said you didn't have a figure on it. And that was 2 months ago.
No, you have. It is appraised.
It is appraised, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, then,
What's the number?
Well, do you want to publicly discuss that and give that number away is the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I don't think we should do that.
I don't think that's a good way to handle business, but if you want to put all that on the table, you'll have to vote on that.
Let's do it. I say vote on it.
I
we
think
can't
that-
get rid of them now because it says how many days we have to give them a notice, right?
Who? Give who those?
These people that they're planning on going back.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'm not understanding the beginning of your question. The tenants are still there.
Right.
Okay? Now, you're going to move forward to sell it. You're going to sell it either under and subject to the current one-year lease, and the new owner will then decide to either keep those tenants, raise the rent, or give them an eviction notice. If you get to the point of concluding a deal in which they don't want to take it with tenants there, then we would initiate the process of vacating the building. But under any of these scenarios, there's lots of notices, lots of advertisements, and it does take time to accomplish.
Well, we're not saying that the deal is done, right? We're not saying that.
Which
the deal,
one?
this current.
It's done.
They appear to be very, very negative.
Are they? Okay.
And I was trying to be absolutely sure that there was no miscommunication
But
or
he
misunderstanding.
didn't email you back, though, answering the questions in the last
When I
memo.
called, I could not get through. I
Okay.
was getting messages like the person's on vacation, so I sent the email. But as I said, I'm not being Pollyannish about this. I'm concerned that was,
think it
no
is.
matter how you look
Yeah.
at it, a negative opinion, so I think that we should keep moving. If
Was
we
it
get to
time-
August and they suddenly show great interest in it, well, great. Then we'll try to get something in writing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it time to put it up with a realty or what?
Well,
Time
what
to
I've
move
proposed
forward,
is,
auction, realty, whatever?
what I've proposed is to get information on realtors who might be interested in what they would charge, for you to have that information in August, and to hopefully in August make a decision as to which method of sale you want to utilize.
What happens if I'd come up with somebody tomorrow that wants to buy the building? Where do we stand?
With a private sale,
Yes.
well, you need to make a
With the
motion
people that's in there now.
from them. Okay,
Our
they would,
legal part of is, if I come up with somebody tomorrow that has the money to pay for it, that wants to buy it, we have tenants in there, but their lease is up, right? The lease was up at the end of June.
their lease,
Goes next year.
technically speaking, rolled over. And I tried to explain this in an email I sent out yesterday. It rolled over because neither side gave notice 60 days prior to the end of each one of them. And one ends in June and the other one ends at the end of July. So both of those things have to be constantly watched. I did not like, I had concerns about language which each of them had put into a lease form that they were proposing to use. So in working with Mr. Masha, I have generated a list of what I thought it should be, and I've sent that off back to both WIU and to Westmoreland Community Action. What I'm proposing is that later on, the form you adopt is to adopt what I've recommended. If they decide they don't want to sign that, then our response can be, well, we don't want to sign your form. The old leases are rolling over, but we won't make any more changes. Now, at least one of them may have a problem with that, because in the past, they've indicated that to satisfy their auditors or some kind of regulation, they're really supposed to have a written lease that coincides with the lease year and not just have these rollovers. So we can see what happens if they really want to not go along with the form that we're proposing.
You still, I don't think, made it clear to me, if I got a guy who wants to bring the money, then we have to go through due process to see where we stand? No, we need a school board meeting, we need a written contract, and we need to decide which method you're going to use. Are you going to do a private sale? In which case you would be looking at having a written contract and have it approved by that person. You still have to have an advertisement and a presentation of a petition to Common Pleas Court. And we did this a long time ago with the registration. No, actually the yellow brick building at the top of
Chestnut.
South Chestnut Street. Called Central Grade, and in that case we had hired a realtor. We found a private buyer, I think it was Mr. Hill, and that agreement had to be taken to Common Pleas Court for approval, and it had to have the opinion of two appraisers that the value being realized by that was higher than what could be realized by another method. So there is time involved with the advertising and get the court approval. The court did approve it, and then we had a closing. I think in that particular situation, there was a provision which you can do but don't have to do, providing for payments by a mortgage, but not to exceed, for a private company, it can't exceed 5 years, private individual. If it's certain kinds of charities, it can be more than 5 years. But they require 2/3 vote.
I make a motion that we sell Roughdale for $1.5 million.
It's only appraised.
Lock, stock, and barrel, all the property, building, everything.
I won't.
Just go for a second.
You do need a formal legal description of it in order for that to be binding and what all the terms and conditions are.
I'd like to make a motion that we
and
put a for sale sign in the front yard of Roughdale.
Well, either, it's the same thing.
And we need to get the thing sold.
Well, that's why I'm proposing coming back in August. If you want to have another meeting next week, I'll
No, we'll do another meeting next week. Let's just.
But I don't think we're prepared.
Advertise selling the building.
I don't think you're prepared to do that tonight with the paperwork that would be required. That's what I'm trying to say. The other thing I'm going to say is I don't think 1.5 million is a realistic number.
We're best off. That's what I said. That's the key word. Let's put a for sale sign in the front yard. How hard is that to do?
Well, you could
for sale
that.
by unit.
Well, you could do that.
I mean, I give the real estate agent all this money.
I'm not saying you have to do a real estate agent. I'm saying come back with all the options, and then you make the decision. If you want to
we need to do something because the bottom fell out of our deal that we had, that we thought we had. Now they're sitting out there with no rent or lease increase because they just played it to just a great amount of time. And they said, well, now you can't raise our rent because it rolled over. So.
Whose fault is it that it rolled over? I think
ours, because we was under the assumption that they was going to buy it, and they didn't.
But
so all they
there
did
has
was
to be something you could do because
It's
of
the county.
that
They have
reason.
deeper pockets than the Southmoreland School District does, so I think we need to sell it. We need to
I'm
move
sorry,
on quickly.
your question?
I think we should be able to look into trying to raise their rent because
Can't.
of the sale.
Too late.
Too late.
That's
We're like
crazy to me.
13 days too
There's
late.
always some kind of something that went wrong and.
Well, it's a year-to-year lease. Prior to that, we had a 3-year lease from 2014 to 2017. 2017, the 17 to 18, you approved a continuation of the last year of that 3-year lease. This year, there was no proposal being made either way for them to leave or for any higher rent, but rather it was left that they would keep them. Now, I was not party to any communications or negotiations with them. That's always been handled by the superintendent's office.
But it was under the assumption they were going to buy it, is why we didn't change anything, right?
Well, they didn't talk to the right people, that's why.
So there's nothing you can do about like no loophole because they aren't going to buy. Like I just think that they should have to pay more rent.
I honestly believe you don't have a legal position to do that.
I think we throw them out.
Well, it'll take 10 months
We have to
to give
sell
the notice next year.
We have to give notice. We have to put a for sale sign in the front yard, notice that we are selling it, give them notice we're selling it, and that's it. Just try to sell it. Someone's going to come along and buy it. Then we give them 60 days notice.
You can put a notice in the front yard, but you are still going to require a formal resolution to move that process along. So if you want to go up and engender some interest in the community, you can do that. But the next step is going to require more formality to it. I was not being facetious or sarcastic. If you want to have a meeting next week, we'll do that. If you want to do what I was suggesting and get more information and be ready to roll with it at the August, whatever the first voting meeting will be, you can do that.
We need to sell the building. What are we going to meet about?
You have to adopt a formal resolution, and in the formal resolution, you have to specifically describe the property with the legal description, the terms and conditions. For instance, do you want cash? Are you willing to do a owner's financing? What interest rate do you want? All that has to be decided.
The last time I checked down at Brillhart's, they have a sign, $1.99 for sale.
You can put the sign up.
Sell it. Just see if we get interest.
That's a private individual. You are highly regulated. I gave you the complete synopsis of 707.
We missed it by 10 days, Dave. We missed it by 10 days. We can't negotiate with these people. They're from the county. You know, we can't raise their rent $25 or $2,500 because we missed it by a week because they misled us.
No.
Thinking they were trying to buy it.
If you wanted to do that kind of approach would have had to have happened like in March and April, not 10 days ago.
Either way, we ran out of time.
Yes.
And we thought in March and April we was on the hook thinking they were buying the building. Yeah? We was on the, in the back burner.
I don't specifically remember.
I don't think they were intentionally playing us, but I think they saw it. And that letter that they sent us said, "Oh, you can't do nothing now. We got you. We're going to stay at the same price."
No, they're referring. I believe they're referring, because it is ambiguously written, that if they became the owner, the only way that they could make economic sense out of it would be to increase the rent, which would affect the existing tenants, including themselves. So it would be like one nonprofit corporation paying another profit corporation more rent just to make the deal work on paper. But that was part of my questions in the letter that I sent them.
We have to do something. The place is not making us money. The place is costing us money. We're hemorrhaging. We're bleeding out because of that place.
I think we ought to go by what what David says. I think we ought to come back, let him do his thing, and come back to us in August and go from there. I don't think this, what we would like to do and what we can do are two different things, Jim.
And I don't want to, I don't want any misgivings about this. if you are going to seek proposals from realtors, I think you ought to advertise it and either decide whether you want Mr. Minshew to be the lead person, me, or someone else. I don't want to just jump in and say, oh, I want to do it. I don't want anybody thinking like, oh, I'm going to go get my favorite realtor. I don't have any. I'll tell you that right now. And that might not even be my recommendation as to the method of sale, but I do want you to have all the information.
How long is it going to take to do that? Find out.
That's what I'm talking about having accomplished by the August meeting.
By the August meeting.
Let's get whatever we have to do, and let's get it done. Bottom line.
I would ask that when it comes time that for the presiding officer to call for a motion to authorize advertising for interested realtors to submit proposals for handling the sale of Roughdale Elementary School.
All feelings aside, right there. I'm not worried about who gets hurt in this whole thing. We need to sell it.
No.
There's no footprint. There's no, hey, we need to sell this, but we like to keep the, we just need to sell it. Lock, stock, and barrel, we need to sell it.
I don't think it's realistic to continue to put contingencies in for requiring the existing baseball ownership, which is a shame because they put money into the property. And it may be that the new owner wants to lease to them anyway, but it's become too cumbersome.
There's plenty of parks in the area.
Well, David, there's another question. Now here, I'm surprised that you want to get rid of the whole thing, Jim, because don't your kids play about baseball up there?
They do, yes, sir.
Okay, they just put $10,000 into them fields.
And I warned them against that.
Well, I don't care whether you warned them or didn't, they did it. And I can't see cheating these kids by hurrying up and selling the whole thing. You are.
Charlie said 2 meetings ago that the ball fields up on top of the Cardiac Hill are never used. He would love to see them used more often. There's fields in Scottsdale, and shame on the borough of Scottsdale for not keeping up with them. There's plenty of places to play, Butch. I don't want to hear your belly aching, buddy. Don't want to hear it. Not interested.
I don't want to hear
There's plenty of fields to play on.
Okay. Don't make me gavel, you guys.
I would propose coming back with another motion also with all the board members here, hopefully for the next meeting, so that you can make that decision whether or not you want to pursue subdivision further or quit and move on with the sale, because I've tried to walk that line. I tried to get all the information, explore all the options, but ultimately it should be the board that decides that. So
Dave, we can't.
I'll bring them both.
We can't have two options. It has to be.
You're going to vote on it. That solves the problem.
We can't have two options. Like keep the thing and not keep the thing. Like, you just can't have that. It has to be sell it as whole or not sell it.
You can vote and decide that.
We can't have two options.
You can vote and decide that.
But that's all we all have to decide is.
The property and sell the school as is and keep the baseball field there with a lease of $1 per year to have.
I've got to tell you, that's going to make it complicated.
Why?
It is because
10 years ago it was complicated when I wanted you to do it.
It's complicated because the access is via a road that is adjacent to the boundary line of the school district, but not on the actual school district property, and then comes back farther along that road into the school district property. It is not a width that would typically be currently required by PennDOT. It raises the issue over whether or not there would have to be another access road. It also raises the issue of where to divide the property so that I would assume that the new owner of the building would want the septic system completely on their own property. And then that raises the issue of trying to find out how much ground that needs to support that. And unfortunately, when we ask that question to the township, because that predates current standards, there's not a magic answer that's written down to answer that. That would probably require somebody to do an extensive engineering study, and that's more money.
Everything's more money.
It is.
We've been fooling with this, and we've been paying people to
But
research. Now listen to me.
You can make the vote. You can vote on it, but I'm just telling you those are the
I'm telling you,
problems.
we spent a lot of money on this, and we haven't had answers yet.
Well, we got answers from. We listened to what the baseball people had to say. We got together with the township because of trying to explore all opportunities, and we met multiple times with a prospect. It didn't work out, so we should move on. I agree. But if you want to subdivide, you're going to have to vote to tell us that, and I'm not recommending it because I think it's going to make it more complicated. I'm sorry. But if you want to do it that way, it's up to you. Should I move on to something else?
Well, I think that, my opinion is I think that we should let David come back with the information at the August meeting and explore some of these positions and then move forward. We don't want to make a hasty decision now. That's my opinion. So, go ahead.
My request then would be that you approve a motion to advertise for interest from realtors to submit letters of interest and what their fee structure would be.
You want to do that now?
It's up to you. You may.
Might as well do it now here.
Well, it's fine.
Let's do that. Okay. We have a motion then to have David further explore this.
And authorize the school district to advertise
all that
for interest from realtors.
Need a motion?
Yeah, make a motion.
Second? Okay. Do you need a roll call?
Yes.
All right. We need a roll call, Miss Peggy?
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
No.
Motion carries 6, 1 no, and 2 absent.
Okay.
So that's for Mr. Botani to explore options
And to advertise.
and for school district to advertise for interest from realtors, sending letters of interest in along with their fee structure.
I'll draft an ad for it.
All right. Do you have anything else? Sir?
That's plenty.
Okay. All right. Seeing no old business, we'll move on to new business. 2018-2019 Presley Ridge Agreement.
It is recommended that the board approve the 2018-2019 contract with Presley Ridge Day School. The attached addendum, effective July 1st, 2018, extends and modifies the original contract, which is attached for the 2018-2019 school year.
I need a motion.
I just have a question. We can't do this in-house, right? This has to be.
I believe these are students that have been placed there because of their behaviors are so extreme that we are not able to facilitate.
Right, so we can't do it here.
Right.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Haichu?
I would concur, but I would refer to the building principals who would be dealing with the disciplinary nature of their behaviors more so than I.
This would be an example. If we have an expulsion, we would have the option to send that in because we are still obligated to educate adult students that are under the age of 17. This would be one of the facilities where we would
Well, by and large, the variation in pricing is minimal. If this is the least expensive, I can't say that to you with certainty, but it is all the out-of-district placements, based on the numbers I shared with you with previous, they're all around that $34,000 level.
So clear on this. This is something that we're talking about this now. This is something we've already decided on, right? The budget, or is this?
I do believe this was a budgeted item, yes, sir.
This is
Yes.
a budget item. So
Yes.
These contracts occur every school year.
Yes.
So in the past, however many school years we've had students going to Preston Ridge, you've voted on and approved these contracts.
Okay, so if we gave you $130,000, this is another $25,000 in addition to what we approved, right?
No.
This is separate from that.
Separate? Yeah.
And that was in Mr. Marnell's budget in terms of his understanding from previous year's expenses. The one thing that's the unknown with any of these out-of-district placements is if we have a student who transfers into our school district because their family moved,
Right.
and they've gone to that school, then this school district has to continue to send them to that school because their IEP specifically states that's where they go.
So my question is, we didn't have this accounted for in the budget when we discussed the numbers, right?
We did.
We did?
Yes.
All right. All right, as long as we had it accounted for.
Yeah, I understood it was in the budget, but I just wanted to verify that, you know, we've been talking more about our in-house.
Yeah. Why are we talking about this? It was already in the budget.
Because you have to agree with the contract.
It's renewing the contract.
Oh, okay.
The contract, I guess, came in.
The contracts for the other out-of-district placements came in earlier. We received this contract this week from Preston Ridge.
Okay.
So the other out-of-district placements, we probably have already reviewed and voted on those contracts for next school year.
Okay. Thank you for answering. Thank you.
Understanding the financial situation, we're going to be exploring every avenue that we can to try to alleviate the burden.
We're going to put like a fountain in the middle of the school here for collect coins.
Good idea.
I'll make the motion.
To collect coins?
Yeah. For Preston Ridge.
Motion by Mr. Fry.
Mr. Polakowski has made the motion, so Mr. Fry seconds.
Yeah.
Yep.
Roll call, please. Any more discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Weissel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 with 2 absent.
Westmoreland Case Management and Support, Inc., SAP Service Agreement.
It is recommended that the board approve the agreement with Westmoreland Case Management and Supports for the provision of student assistance services, SAP, to eligible students for the 2018-2019 school year.
Do we have a motion?
What is it we're voting on first?
Go to new business number 2.
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Polakowski, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Weissel. Discussion?
What are we voting on?
This is for our student assistance program, student services.
Okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Weissel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 with 2 absent.
2018-2019 lease agreement with Westmoreland Community Action Head Start.
It is recommended that the board approve a 1-year lease agreement with Westmoreland Community Action Head Start for the Roughdale building for the 2018-2019 school year.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Fry, second.
This would be as per the form resolution that's about a page and a half long. that
How much is it?
describes the-
Per year?
Yeah, each one of these is different.
Really, 1,900 a month.
This was 1 year. Rental for the 2018-2000 year is $23,493, which is comes in 12 monthly installments of $1,957.75 beginning on July 1st, 2018.
That's what I read earlier. They don't, I guess it's 6 months, it doesn't matter now, but they don't pay nothing else. They just pay $1,900 a month. That's it, right? All right. And when do we need to give them notice, Dave, if we don't sell this place? When does that need to be addressed to?
More than 60 days
60 days.
prior to July 1st of 2019.
Like April.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Not May. May 12th.
So we need to tell, hey, Jim, make note of that.
Probably should start earlier than that, like February and March.
We have a motion?
We have a motion by Mr. Fry, do not have a second yet.
We need a second? Second by Mrs. Smith. Roll call?
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
One yell for Mr. Alt? Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 6, 1 away from the table and 2 absent.
Okay. 2018-2019 lease agreement between the WIU 7 and Southmoreland School District.
It is recommended that the board approve a lease agreement between WIU 7 and Southmoreland School District to lease rooms for the 2018-2019 school year in the Rosedale School Building.
Need a motion?
So good.
Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Smith. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 with 3 absent.
All right. Student extracurricular activity fee.
It is recommended the board approve the student extracurricular activity fee for the 2018-2019 school year.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Polakowski, second.
Second.
Mr. Beistel. Discussion?
So this is for everybody, no matter what. If we have free, reduced lunch.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Okay.
As per the chart there, you know. Did we have a second?
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Polakowski was for motion, made the motion.
Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Carson? Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Motion carries 6, 3 absent.
Pre-K counts license.
It is recommended that the board approve the license agreement between Southmoreland School District and Private Industry Council of Westmoreland Fayette, Inc. for the pre-K counts program housed in the elementary school.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-3 absent.
August 9, 2018 board meeting.
It is recommended that the August 9, 2018 board meeting be advertised as a voting meeting.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Fry, second.
Second.
Mrs. Smith? Roll call?
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson, we're voting that the August 9th meeting be a voting meeting.
No.
What was your vote, Mr. Carson?
No.
Did you say no?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 6, 1 no, 2 absent.
We can go ahead and do this. Restoration of assistant coaches.
It is recommended the board restore the assistant coaches positions eliminated at the June 28, 2018 budget meeting and transfer $25,924 from the account 5900 budgetary reserve into account 10-3250-131 to fund these positions.
I need a motion.
Ask one more time.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have to vote on this, right? We're going to vote on
You
it.
don't have to.
You don't have to vote on it.
It dies.
Okay.
It dies if no
Well,
one
then I'll just, no.
Resend.
you withdraw your motion.
I do.
Record that the motion was made.
Restoration of team leaders.
It is recommended the board restore the team leader positions eliminated at the June 28, 2018 budget meeting and transfer $35,000 from the account 5900 budgetary reserve into the accounts listed.
Need a motion? I need a motion.
Hearing no motion, motion fails.
Recess. I'm going to recess for personnel. I need a motion to recess. Mr. Carson? Second? By Mr. Beisel? Okay. Recess to personnel. Paul Kosky, we need a second? Smith? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, under personnel, we have middle school girls soccer coach resignation.
It is recommended the board approve the resignation of Jean Spadero as the middle school girls soccer coach and authorize administration to post and advertise the position.
We need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Carson, second.
Second.
Mr. Beistel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7, 2 absent.
Summer band volunteers.
It is recommended that the board approve the list of summer band volunteers. Woodward instructor Ben Hennigan, brass instructor Ben Wilcox, percussion instructor Nick Driscoll, guard instructor Beth Utira, guard instructor Megan Berg Swope, percussion instructor Dustin Miller, percussion instructor Taylor Gephardt, and head driver Larry Greenwald.
I need a motion.
So be it.
Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Mr. Polakowski. Roll call.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. O?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7, 2 absent.
High school assistant girls soccer coach.
It is recommended that the board approve Holly Shipley as the girls' high school assistant soccer coach at a supplemental salary of $3,630 for the 2018-2019 school year, pending receipt of all clearances.
Need a motion.
So be it.
Mr. Beistel, second. Second, Mrs. Smith. Roll call.
Mr. Carson?
No.
Mr. Fry?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. O?
No.
Mr. Beistel?
No.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion failed. 2 absent.
Resolution specifying position abolishment.
Whereas, as a result of the report of then Superintendent Dr. John A. Molnar on June 28, 2018, and the Southmoreland School Board approving the resolution for curtailment or alteration of the educational program of the Southmoreland School District on same date, and to more precisely specify the positions abolished. Now therefore, motion. Be it resolved that the above preamble is incorporated by reference. The Board of School Directors acknowledges, ratifies, and approves that as a result of the above, the following foreign language positions have been abolished. Grade 8 Spanish, a half-time position, leaving no Spanish positions at the middle school. Grade 9 through 12 Spanish, a half-time position, leaving one full-time Spanish position. Grade 8 French, a half-time position, leaving no French position at the middle school. And grade 9 through 12 French, half-time position, leaving one full-time French position.
Need a motion.
Make that motion.
Polakowski, a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Beistel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. O?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7, 2 absent.
Resolution to give notice of furlough.
Whereas the Board of Education of Southmoreland School District received a report and recommendation of the then Superintendent, Dr. John Molnar, on June 28, 2018, for the curtailment or alteration of the educational program in order to conform with standards of organization or educational activities required by law, as more fully set forth therein, specifically the elimination of the teaching of foreign language, Spanish and French, in the middle school, resulting in the elimination of one half-time French position and one half-time Spanish position in the Southmoreland Middle School, and the elimination of one half-time French position in grade 9 through 12, and the elimination of one half-time Spanish position in grades 9 through 12, and the resolution of this date in relation thereto, which are hereby incorporated by reference as is fully set forth herein. Whereas the new superintendent, Mr. Vincent A. Masha, has determined who are the necessary number of employees to be suspended, furloughed, and I want to make sure that this is understood. This is a furlough due to a reduction in a program, not for any other reason.
It's not disciplinary.
And their order of suspension as a result of considering Section 1125.1 of the Public School Code and Labor Agreement and realignment of the staff of professional employees, and determined that to be Marie Masaryk, from the former position of half-time middle school, specifically Spanish foreign language, as a result of the above elimination of the middle school foreign language program and the elimination of the former half-time high school Spanish position, leaving no position for which she is certified and not least senior. And now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of School Directors incorporates the above parameters as part of the resolution and directs the superintendent to give the notice of intent to suspend furlough. Once again, I would like to make sure that it's understood as a furlough, to whom the superintendent has determined to be the following person: Marie Masaryk, and to give the appropriate notice of intent to suspend, which shall include appropriate notice of the right to claim a local agency hearing before the Board of School Directors, and to take all action necessary to have a hearing, including obtaining outside counsel as needed if she requests a hearing within the appropriate time period.
I need a motion.
Make that motion.
Mr. Polakowski, a second.
Second.
Mr. Beistel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 7, 2 absent.
Do we have any citizens' comments? Citizen comments? Need a motion for adjournment?
So be it.
Mr. Carson, Mr. Beisel, all in favor? Aye. Good night.